Hi, my name is Jillian Chartier, and today I will be presenting on dysgraphia. Dysgraphia, as defined by the Cleveland Clinic, is the neurological condition and learning disability in which someone has difficulty with writing for their age level. Dysgraphia, according to the IDEA, is a specific learning disability. Dysgraphia presents as a difficulty writing, both with the physical aspect of writing, such as writing the letters on the page, and issues with translating thoughts into words. So finding the right words to say when writing. There are two main types of dysgraphia, developmental dysgraphia and acquired dysgraphia. Developmental dysgraphia appears when children are first learning to write. There is a genetic component to this. If a parent has or had dysgraphia, then the child is more likely to have it. Additionally, males are more likely to have developmental dysgraphia than females. Acquired dysgraphia appears suddenly after head or brain trauma. So if a person gets a concussion and then has difficulty with writing afterwards, they might have acquired dysgraphia. Characteristics of dysgraphia. Dysgraphia is generally illegible writing, such as the writing sample to the right. You can kind of sort of read it, but you have to concentrate really hard. It's not as easy as reading something out of a textbook. There are many inconsistencies in the writing samples of somebody that has dysgraphia, such as a mix of cursive and print lettering, upper and lowercase lettering, irregular sizes, slants, and then sometimes the letters are written in reverse. People with dysgraphia often have spelling problems, and they have unfinished or omitted words and letters. The image on the right is a writing sample of somebody who is 26 years old and has dysgraphia. So you can see how there is a mix of lowercase and uppercase lettering, and how there are some spelling errors. There's some words that are crossed out. You can also tell how some of the words are slanted and how some of the words aren't staying in the correct spacing. Like the letters are spaced incorrectly. Also, the words are running into the margin and they're not staying within the lines. Some more characteristics of dysgraphia, like I was just talking about, are inconsistent position and spacing on the page in relation to the margins, but also in respect to the lines on the page. Another characteristic of dysgraphia is the student or person having a cramped or unusual grip on their writing utensil, often to look awkward or even painful. Slow or labored writing is another characteristic of dysgraphia. It takes a student or a person with dysgraphia a lot longer to write a writing sample than a person that does not have dysgraphia. Also, a main characteristic of dysgraphia is content that does not reflect the student's language skills. So if the student's writing sample is reflecting something of a first grade nature and they are in fourth grade, but their reading comprehension and their oral speaking abilities and all of that is at the correct fourth grade level, then that is a clear indicator that they probably have dysgraphia because it is affecting this one realm. On the left, you can see another image of a writing sample of dysgraphia. This image is a second grade student's handwriting and they have dysgraphia. Again, you can see how there's incorrect spacing in between the letters and the words, how the letters are not staying properly within the lines, and how there's a mix of uppercase and lowercase lettering. So what are some evidence-based practices and specific accommodations that can be made within the classroom to help support these students? So some accommodations can be made for time. A specific one for this is including time in the student's schedule for catching up on work or getting ahead on written work. Because these students require more time on written assignments, making sure you build that time into their schedule is key for their success. So perhaps when you could make time in your schedule just for all of your students to have a catch-up period of time, or when other students are doing independent reading, perhaps some of that time can be devoted to catching up on work for a student with dysgraphia. Making sure also with time to dedicate specific time to handwriting tasks and to spelling instruction is very important. In the lower grades, you'll be getting this anyways, hopefully, built into your curriculum. However, in the upper grades, this might need to be something that is added to the student's schedule. Next is volume. So a specific example of accommodation for volume is providing a partially completed outline for students' notes instead of having them complete all of the notes. So provide the students with guided notes. This is where you give the students most of the paragraph of your lecture, and you take out a few words, and then the student has to fill in those words as you are lecturing. That way they're still paying attention, they're still taking notes, they're still working on their handwriting. However, not all of their focus needs to be turned to writing. They can work on understanding the content that is being said. Additionally, for volume, allowing students to dictate some assignments or tests. So this looks like having the students write down the answer to 2 or 3 questions, but then say the rest of their answers orally to the teacher or a teacher's aide. For complexity, a specific accommodation that can be made is giving the students a binder with a model of cursive or print letters inside of it, and a laminated template of the required format for written work. By doing this, it provides the students with an example of the alphabet that's right there, right next to them, they can use at any time that they need. Then they can, trace the letters if they're having difficulty forming a specific letter. But also by providing a laminated template of the required format for written work, the student knows what's expected of them, and they can use this as a reference whenever they are doing written work. Another specific accommodation that can be made for complexity is do not count spelling as a criteria on rough drafts or one-sitting assignments. Allow the student to instead focus on the content that they are presenting you rather than having to worry about the spelling. For tools, allow the student to write with cursive or manuscript writing. There is a lot of evidence showing that students with dysgraphia actually prefer cursive over print lettering because there is less stopping of the pen or pencil when you're writing in cursive. The letters flow together, and so it can be easier for students to write in cursive. Additionally, provide students in the younger grades with paper with raised lines. This helps the students learn to keep their writing on the line. And then let the student use whatever writing instrument is most comfortable for them, whether this is a pen or a pencil. And have pencil grips available for all of the students so that the student with dysgraphia doesn't feel singled out. Pencil grippers are actually great for both working fine motor skills, but also making sure students are holding their pencil or writing utensil correctly, and that's a skill that a lot of younger students need to work on. So providing those to the entire class rather than just the student with dysgraphia helps the student with dysgraphia to not feel singled out, but still helps them to work on that. Continuing on, some modifications / accommodations that can be made. Quality over quantity. Make sure you emphasize to your students that you are looking for quality of content over the quantity of writing. So instead of 3 pages worth of writing that doesn't really get to the content, instead allow them to only write a paragraph or 2 if they can get all of their thoughts onto the paper within that. Allow the students to provide shorter writing samples, such as answering 3 out of X questions. What this means is that on a quiz or assessment, if there are, say, 6 written questions, allow the student to only answer 3 of those written, and for the other 3, orally dictate their answers to the teacher or a teacher's aide. This way, they're still working on their handwriting skills, but they also are able to focus on the content and don't have to spend the entire test trying to just write out their answers to the written questions. Additionally, another specific evidence-based practice is to grade them on individual parts of a writing process when you are working on grading that. What this means is for one assignment, grade them on capitalization, on another, grade them on punctuation, on another, grade them on grammar, so on and so forth. This way, they only have to focus on one thing at one time, and it feels way less overwhelming for a student with dysgraphia who struggles with writing. Additionally, provide alternative projects when possible. So instead of writing an essay, allow them to give an oral presentation or allow the student to create a visual presentation, such as like a movie trailer for a book instead of giving an essay over a book that they read. Continuing on, with more evidence-based practices, providing, again, like I said, specific handwriting instruction time within the day. If the student's dysgraphia is severe enough, they may benefit from occupational therapy where they work with someone specifically on those fine motor skills and specifically on those handwriting skills. Allow alternatives to handwriting methods when possible, such as voice to texts, and dictating their answers to an aide or a peer. And a specific example of when this could happen is if they are working on a small in-class assignment, rather than having them spend most of their time trying to write out the answers, they can use Google Docs and use the voice to text option. Make sure you're balancing accommodations and modifications. It is still important that these students are working on their handwriting skills, as this is a skill that they need throughout their entire life. And then finally, provide the student with activities to work on their fine motor skills. Your fine motor skills are key to handwriting because that is the skill that you use when you are using your handwriting. So provide the student activities to work on their fine motor skills, such as working with clay that works on the muscles in your hands, tracing letters, and doing mazes where the lines that they draw must stay within the designated lines. Here is a copy of the handout. These accommodations and modifications are all things that I have just gone over. Also on this handout, I would like to point out that approximately 5 to 20% of people have dysgraphia. Now, this is a large range, and the reason it is so large is because most of the people with dysgraphia often go undiagnosed. And then again, like to reiterate that if dysgraphia is severe, the student could benefit from occupational therapy. And at the bottom of the handout, I did include 2 links for more information if you wanted to look a little bit more into this, or if you do have a student in your classroom who you think could benefit from some dysgraphia resources. Alrighty, and then here is a little more, it's an in-depth video on one of the accommodations that you can provide a student in the classroom.
With dysgraphia often have a hard time forming letters and writing sentences and paragraphs and things like that have the correct spacing. One way to help support these students in our classroom is by creating a binder full of resources for them to use. Something that looks like this. Obviously they can decorate it, make it pretty. Afterwards, this is just an example. Some of the things to include in this are printout of the letters so that they can reference the letters. This is very helpful because they have it right in front of them. They can trace these letters with their pencil or with the eraser. Letters are formed. It's also helpful to have it right in front of them versus above the whiteboard or the blackboard. That way they have to see as they're. Additionally, I would include a copy of that. This one has arrows on it, so the students are able to see how you're supposed to form the letters. I would include this as well because it's been shown that students with dysgraphia can often write in cursive easier than they can write in print because there is less stopping of the letters. So you don't have letters individually, the letters kind of flow together. Another thing to include is a simple format for assignments. So this one's a little more advanced. I'd say this is probably like 5th grade, but it's how you want your essays to be structured, how you want written assignments to be structured. Like there's like an introductory paragraph, a body paragraph, and a conclusion. And you would write your expectations on the side. Additionally, it shows the formatting for your name and the date of the top and the title. So this is just an example of what an essay would look like. And this can also be a very helpful reference for students, especially if they're trying to work ahead because they know it takes them a little while longer to write than the other students. And things like that. So that, and additionally, I don't have it with me, but I would include graph paper that can be very helpful for students with dysgraphia when working on math problems.
Alrighty, and then here is the second method that I talk about.
The second method for supporting students in the classroom is creating activities for them to work on their fine motor skills. Now, some of these activities are things like so you can paper like this one, where they can write the letters and then they trace the dots, connect the dots, to work on the fine motor skill of writing and making those lines and connections. Having it online also helps you for spacing. It helps them see lowercase letters should not take up the entire line and things like that. That can be very helpful. Another fine motor skill activity to include in you can make it into like a bucket or like a blender for students to work on in their free time. It's something as simple as a maze. This can be very helpful for students because it helps them learn how to draw the lines while staying within these lines. It's again another fine motor skill, helps them build up those skills that will help them be successful in writing better. Another thing that students can do, that you can have students do, is have them work with clay or Play-Doh, have them fidget with that while they're sitting at their desk listening to things. that seems honestly like there's conflict, but what it really does is it works on your fine motor skills, it works on building the muscles in the hand that you will then use for writing. Additionally, in this bucket or area that you keep all these supplies, I would say to also have different types of fun like pencil grippers. Like there's ones that are solid or like little triangles. And have that be with all students. That way you're not singling out your students that struggle with writing or your students that have dysgraphia. But by having those pencil grippers, it helps form their hand in the way that they're supposed to be. So having that bucket of activities to work on fine motor skills can be very helpful in the classroom. The second method.
And then here are my resources or my references, sorry. And references continued. Alrighty, thank you so much for listening.